Hello, everyone, and welcome to our circle and Salve Women. For today, we're going to talk about Let the Good Times Never End from my latest reflection. And, it's interesting because you're probably looking at my canvas in the back. I know I have, and thinking to myself, when am I ever going to finish it? And really, it's near finished. I just have to put its covering. And I think when I start to show you all the many things that I tend to put, I'm always extra, then you hopefully will come to understand why it's taking a while. But it's not every day that I get to do this. And for those of you who don't have children and not married or not having any other commitments other than yourself or perhaps someone else, and yet you have a lot of time to engulf yourself in the many things that you're doing for yourself, that's wonderful. I just am at peace at knowing that sometimes putting everything that I want to be able to immerse myself with on that 0-100, like I really lose track of time when I'm into something. And so I just don't want to put in 5 minutes and then walk away. So for me, October has been that month where, an hour and a half to 2 hours of togetherness for my children's like Halloween event. It took like a month for me to really foresee and just plan out mentally and of course emotionally and spiritually in the depths of my heart. And then to see it really come to life, just like all the many Halloween gatherings that I've had in the past, it warms my heart to see the joy of not just my own children, but their friends as well. Some of them commenting that they would have not been able to get as much candy had they been somewhere else or had gone trick-or-treating at all. And so forth. Those are just things to me that are priceless. And so, the portrait in the back, even though, or the canvas painting that I'm doing, even though it's something that I could totally see myself doing all day and just locking myself up in the room until I'm all done, it's okay. Because in life, you commit to things that are priceless to you. And so that's part of growing up. And so in this reflection, I stated again that let the good times never end. It's that mindset that it's not always about what you are saying to yourself is a good time for you. It's about what you're creating for everyone around you. And when it comes to relationships, with my marriage with my husband, it's interesting because I say we're going, we've just passed 3 decades and still going. And there's still so much to learn about each other. There's still so much to learn about myself. And I know he feels the same way because we're constantly reflecting on our actions. And, we started off just quite strong. And I know that from even here on, like we talk about this, it's like we never had the mindset of thinking, well, we're just together because we're together. We were really, really serious about the selection of our togetherness. And since then, we've worked at that, just knowing that you're going to run into some challenges and accepting it. And boy, sometimes is it really, really challenging because not only are you fixated on trying to make everything work for one another, but there will be things that will be, bouncing off of you, or someone else is throwing a ball at you and you're trying to dodge some and you're trying to catch some, and so many pieces to it that in anyone who's ever been in a relationship, in a marriage, truly I know understand it's just something that it's inexplicable sometimes how you could feel one great way and then like that next moment feel quite the opposite. And so when I wrote this, I really was under the mindset of thinking, how could I really inspire other people to know that marriage, regardless of its hardships, it is truly the greatest victory that you could feel as you are seeing yourself getting over all the many hurdles. The stronger you are, the better you are, the more solidified you are, not just with one another, but who you are as a person, because reflectively you can see yourself growing as time goes by. And, there's something about it that makes you go, there's really this saying of you become one. And when you become one, you fortify yourself to be this just magnificence of thinking, wow, we have really come a long way. And so with this one, I have created 4. And of course, any of you out there, I'm sure you have really picked up some really good things from strong marriages. And, for us, very few, very, very few that we have looked and go, wow, they really, truly spiritually inspire us. But you don't need a lot. You just need here and there, because sometimes people are examples of what not to be. And those are good ones too, because you go, oh, goodness gracious. That is something that we could say to ourselves. So at least we know that would never enter our relationship. And so, in life, you have to pick up what will work for you. And so I think to myself, being full of goodness, as I started in this reflection, is really the trade-off that results in a good foundation of a marriage. Because I have said to my husband, I think it's unfair for someone to come in and complete in a relationship expecting the other person to complete them. There's that saying, you complete me. And I think to myself, that's a beautiful saying. And yet, what does that mean? That you came in and complete and you expected someone else to give their completion to you, so that now they could be depleted so that you can feel complete. And I think to myself, how does that work when after a while, if a person keeps giving and giving, and then you forget to reciprocate, you forget to return whatever it is that they are in need of, whatever type of love language they may have, then how do you hold them accountable for when all of a sudden they are no longer able to fulfill your very needs to feel complete? And so my thought about that is, does that mean we balance each other? Because that's a different saying. That's a different attitude. That's a different mentality. When I look at my husband and I go, he brings out the worst of me and the best of me. When I say the worst, because he pulls it out, just like I pull it out of him. I remember having had a husband and wife tone to my husband at one of his sports practices, and I turned and said, oh, I apologize, I totally got husband and wife there at the moment, and because I tend to tune people out when it's about being real. And I really truly appreciated this other person who also committed in a marriage as well, for him to say, no, that's totally good. You guys call each other up, you hold each other accountable. That's awesome. And you know what? It's amazing, because when I look at their partnership, that is just as empowering to me as I hope to have empowered them to think, we inspire each other. Just there are certain relationships that are grateful for the reality, or just being real with one another, that you are able to see, because then that's true love. That is really not trying to fake it for everyone else to see something that is artificial. When you get real, it's this sense of appreciation to go, you know what, that is strength right there, because you are tuning everything out and you're making it just your world, and you're fixated and really centralizing the very love that you share with one another. And so there are 4 components that I felt were really important to address in this one, so that for those of you who are just starting, or those of you who are thinking to get married, in all honesty, to me, it's like, it is the most challenging, one of the most challenging, if not the very most challenging type of togetherness, or type of challenge of working with someone else that you could ever put yourself in, and yet is the most rewarding. It is the most victorious feeling, because when you look back, you go, I have become the greatest of me because of all these many things that were pulled out of me in this relationship. And anyone who fears it, it's understandable as to why, because you may have seen so many non-examples out there, but when you really truly pursue it and say to yourself, but I know what I want, I know what it is that I'm looking for, and I know that I have the ability and the desire to commit and make it work, all I need to do is find someone else who has the same mentality, then we will continue to really work together to get it right every day. And that is that try and that really good mindset to be with, in really incorporating that from the get-go, from the very beginning. So I think to myself, goodness coming together. As long as you're thinking to yourself, we're going to do everything to not allow any bad bile to come in, then we're good, because it's gonna come. You're gonna be tested. You're gonna end up having things that will really put a test to your temperance, the things that you would be able to tolerate, and then you realize, like, the things that your moral values and all the many things, your virtuosity, everything that is about you will then have that moment to go, this is who I am. And this is not something that will be tampered with or that will be depleted, that will be taken away, because the more I am tested, the stronger I am to know that this is who I stand and abide by. So the 4 components that I think to me have really truly helped me to understand that fortification is, it's your only option is to finish. And I said, your only option is to finish strong and really together, right? Because in your mindsets, like from the beginning, you're like, look, we're in this together, and you have to accept and just be real. You don't have to, to me, sometimes we want to make it seem like to everybody else everything is perfect, but you get to a point where you don't owe anyone any explanation as to when things don't feel perfect. It's just like, because when you look at someone who you truly love and they're troubled, I remember about to go to an event. I missed my very, very good friend, my best friend's wedding, because I remember one time my husband just wasn't feeling comfortable. It was always going to be my old friends, and wasn't feeling comfortable about going to his wedding. I missed it, because to me, I wasn't going to go in there and fake it till I made it. It was, and I took a lot of heat from that, because my best friend's truest good friend, better friend than I could ever be, called me out on it and said, why didn't you show up? Called me personally, and I had no explanation other than I didn't go, because I didn't need to explain to anyone else. And it was really to my accountability. I took on the responsibility of deciding not to go, but it was to the love and respect of my husband that I chose not to. And that's just sometimes the choices you have to make. You don't owe it to anybody else. And so for me, from that moment when I started making those decisions, I knew I was going to be making decisions like that throughout our togetherness. Those are just some tough decisions sometimes you have to make, but that's what you do when you build walls, to fortify what it is that you're creating. You sometimes have to just decide how you're going to build it, and some things that you're just going to have to go, not right now. I have to focus on this. And so if your only option is to finish strong, then that is that mentality where you have to have the sensibility to go, the grass may look greener sometimes on the other side. My neighbors may have beautiful flowers and really nice, plants, and look at all their bedding and so forth. Realize though, they took time to fertilize that and put, and water it and, create the right environment for it. And it doesn't mean that you can't do it. So sometimes theirs may look as if it's greener because it was that season for them to really put the time in. And sometimes your seasons are going to be just a little bit more arid. Sometimes you're just not feeling up to, watering your plants or getting up to fertilize or cultivate it. And, you're just like, forget it. This is the season where it's just going to be that way. I remember having our last 2 boys, and our daughter was having some homecoming pictures coming in, and we said, sure. And we had gone to the mall. We were just tired, to say the least, but really trying to find time to be alone, and with having also entertaining our younger 2 so that they wouldn't be crying all the time. We walked around the mall, totally lost track of time, came back, there were people in front of our home ready to take pictures, and our front yard probably looked like there were more weeds than there were flowers. We just had 2 children, one year after another. It was to no one's understanding and to no one's fault for not understanding as to how we were being at that time. And, not the greatest moment for my daughter. But at the same rate, my husband and I came from backgrounds where, just going to homecoming was a different type of light back then. You just went to go. And so, we weren't educated in the sense of knowing that you made it that big of a deal. And we had to own that. Does it mean that we loved our daughter any less? Absolutely not. It was just that you have to own sometimes the eyes, the opinions that anyone's going to be throwing at you, because ultimately that you are still working to better yourself, better your relationship, and strengthen it as much as you possibly can so that it will continue to be solid and without having to allow anything else to interfere that. And so sometimes, you just have to think to yourself, you know what, my grass is not so green right now, but I give you my word that it is not dead, and that in time it'll be green again, and it'll be inspiring others just as you have inspired me. Because it's not a comparison. If we really are trying to understand one another, we're trying to really evolve together into this betterment of life, and really truly getting from each other the understanding that seasons happen, and sometimes it is what it is, and you make it what it can be, the best you can. And sometimes your best is the least of what people would ever think to be the best, but it's the best you can give at that given moment. So your only option is to finish strong. And no matter how, I don't like to use the word weak, because there's never that that mentality in me, but really, however less strong you may look, it's okay, because your inner strength, and you're going to finish at the end anyway and be victorious. So that's fine. The next one is be that example. And I think to myself, what message am I going to give when I'm gone? And I think to myself, what are people going to say when my husband and I have left this world? What are they going to tell our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren? And how are we going to inspire them in any way? Are we going to be, that couple where people go, gosh, they made it, and they did so well to not just help one another, but help those around them. And they really, made a mark to inspire other people. These are things that my husband and I have talked about in the very beginning. I remember, and he still smiles about it to this day, because I told him I was going to be the greatest wife there was to ever be. And, that was my mentality. And, it was a selling point to him, but I meant it. And, am I perfect? Am I right every time? Well, the time where I'm always thinking I'm right, that's part of growth, because I realize now sometimes you have to surrender to the fact that you're not always right. But that's part of working to be the best you can be, because you're committed to that. And so for me, you want to be that example that other people can go, they know that they don't get it right all the time, but they're trying all the time, and they're never quitting. So it's not as if you are codependent, where all of a sudden you find the convenience to stay with one another, even though you're just like the joke I made in my previous reflection, where there was a couple, it was a joke that I learned. It was my husband and I thought it was funny, because it's you can relate to these sense of humor kind of things in relationships, where two couples were investigated as to why the wife had to hit the husband with a wooden blunt object or so, and they couldn't even remember what they were arguing about. And I'm thinking to myself, is that really holy matrimony though? Is it something that you can say to yourself, well, we're so proud to be together because we've been together for so long, all our lives, but really, how healthy have you been together? And are you really an inspiration to other people? Or are you an example of, my goodness, they're together, but they are really, really protruding this unhealthy type of energy that, should never have become. And I think to myself, from the very beginning of time, you have to establish a healthy relationship and stay with that and really cultivate that, because that then is what will inspire other people, and saying, sometimes the weeds do sprout, but they know how to work it where they're pulling them as much as they can, and they're aware of them, so that the roses continue to bloom. And even when the roses sometimes are not abundant, at least they know that they have given it their best to to just have whatever rose that will then come to bloom. And that to me is what I want my grandchildren to say. It's like, oh, when they hear about us, I want them to remember that, we held hands together, that we talked, and that we argued, but we loved harder. It's like you had moments where you had differences, but we sure had a lot of greater moments where we really connected and we really could see each other from across the room and just smile at one another. Those are moments you go, that's an inspiration. And so you have to ask yourself, how do you want to leave yourself as a legacy for those who will be then inspired by you, inspired by relationship, and go, I want to be that. I want to be that relationship. I want to be that marriage. And because they can accept the fact that they may not be great all the time, but they're always striving for excellence. The next one is don't predict, prepare. And, it's funny because I always say we like to Peter Pan, right? We really want to always think that the world can be perfect. And even though someone's like, I don't know, if there's a incoming storm, I don't know if you should be preparing this picnic right outside, and you're still putting out, and this is me, I analogize a lot of things and metaphorically speaking, but you go ahead and put your blanket out, and you put your plates out, and for those of you who drink alcohol, whatever, you may have your champagne, or for us, it'd be like bottled water, and so you put your foods out, and then you maybe have some candles and so forth, and you're just excited to be outside, and here comes this ominous cloud, and then it's not going to rain. It just won't, That's not a bad mentality to have, because in your mind, you're still strong. You're still saying to yourself, even if it does, I'm going to continue to move forward and just make this happen the best way I can. And, either way, prepare with an umbrella, because when you do get drenched, when you do end up feeling burnt from the sun, or that it gets very chilly and cold and you're regretting that you didn't bring a coat, those are times where you get challenged, and then you're like bummed, and then you're wishing that you had prepared. So even though you have this strong mentality to go, you know what? I'm fine. I'm good with the incoming storm. It's not going to faze me. It's better to be prepared just in case. It's a lot more tougher than you anticipated. And then last but not least, honor the commitment. Honor the moment that you had said to each other that you made a vow through thickness and through thin, and sickness and then health. The mindset you have is what is seen and felt by others and by you. You have to be true to yourself. It doesn't lie, you hear whispers all the time when you know that you're just not being real. And so honor to that commitment of saying to yourself, this is what I'm keeping holy, and that I want to make sure I do what I can for all the right reasons of making it work. And it doesn't matter what other people may think. It doesn't matter what people may suggest. It is about us. It's what makes sense to us. It's what empowers us. It's what makes us solid. It's what fortifies us. Honor that commitment, and know with one another what you came in for and how you're going to finish. And sometimes when things look gray, it's okay, because the light is still there, and there's nothing that can take you totally out until you blow out that candle yourself. So just remain strong, and don't, sometimes you become just phased at times, but that's okay. And all it is that that you're falling forward regardless. And you may sometimes feel like it's tough, but you can smile and go, we did it, and we did it again and again and again. And you can then exhale and smile, and then hopefully laugh back at the end, and then tell stories of how you made it through, so that others can go, that's a great story, and I'm thankful that you were able to share it with me, because then it's going to make people understand, couples who are starting off, that there are things that are going to happen to test you, but you will make it. no matter what, if you stand strong. So in the words of my mother, God bless us all. This might have taken a little longer than anticipated, but I felt it was important. Don't give up on you. Don't give up on your relationship. Just be true to yourself and don't worry about the world. The world's not worried about you. Have a great day.